and welcome to the Anti-Heroes podcast with your host, Zach Blair. I am Zach Blair, and I'm going to talk to you here at the beginning of this to ask a question. So what does Minor Threat, Dag Nasty, and Bad Religion all have in common? Well, they all include our guest today, which is Mr. Brian Baker, and I cannot say enough about Brian. I know I say that a lot, but I'm definitely serious here. I don't feel like this guy gets enough credit for being probably the single most influential guitar player to punk rock as we know it nowadays. Brian brought a double picked, alternate picked, galloping, sort of a metal approach to punk rock music with Dag Nasty, and had sort of done that before with Minor Threat. When he was a bass player in Minor Threat, he actually did play guitar on the Out of Step record as well. But there was this galloping phrasing that he, in my opinion, just invented and brought it across the board that everyone copied afterwards. So we all owe it to Brian Baker. He's a good friend, which I am humbled to say. He is a gear aficionado, a vintage gear aficionado, and has been giving me lots and lots of shit about my gear choices ever since I met him, which is great because he's usually right, actually. And we'll talk about that. So please sit back, enjoy my conversation with Brian Baker. Hello, and welcome to the Anti-Heroes podcast with me, Zach Blair. Today, I'm going to embarrass the gentleman that's sitting here in front of me talking because, like I have said many, many times before, I don't think the idea that we all know of punk rock guitar would exist the way we know it without my guest today. Definitely the way I play, definitely what I do to make my living, I feel is at least 95% attributed to Mr. Brian Baker, and I have Brian Baker here with me. Hi, Brian.
Hello, Zach.
How are you?
I'm fine, and that's very flattering, and I'm grateful. But you do realize that if you're 95% me, then in fact you're 90% Captain Sensible, which is where I stole from.
I'll take that.
So there's no original thing going on here. It's really just I like to call it the happy accident.
Sure, but I disagree with you, and we've had this discussion before. We might have had this discussion in Japan while we were there with Captain Sensible.
I think we did.
I think we did. But I think to get nerdy about it, which is the exact point of this podcast, you brought in, for lack of a better term, that sort of heavier right hand. And I don't just mean in the Greg Ginn sort of ethos of phrasing. I mean picking, as in double picking, as in gallop picking, as in sort of a metal approach, but not offensively metal, even though I'm a metal guy too. It didn't strike you. And I'm speaking more so about Dag Nasty, but you didn't go, oh, this is a metal guitar sound. You've managed to somehow create a very punk rock aesthetic to it, but it was rooted in metal. And then everyone to this day copies that.
Well, it was the Damned meets Iron Maiden.
Exactly.
That kind of
exactly.
that era British kind of 70s, early 80s stuff, because I loved that. And It was really fun to play. But I never, then Metallica kind of stepped that whole thing up. And I kind of missed that wave because I was before that. So I wasn't really, I didn't get a chance to be influenced by that particular kind of metal that was developing. I know it was happening. I just wasn't paying attention in the early 80s. But by the time we all knew about it, for me, it was later 80s and it was its own thing. So.
Well, and that brings another interesting point, because I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but they were like, oh yeah, I was bragging about you and talking about you and name dropping you as I am wont to do. So somebody said, oh yeah, but Rick Agnew brought in the octave chords, the thing that we all, that Rise Against definitely does. And I was like, no, I'm going to argue with you there too. Brian brought those in as well. And I don't know if Rick might have brought him in before or it was simultaneous, but I mean, you listen to those Dag Nasty records, it's all in the blueprint right there, you know?
Well, I don't know either because I loved the Adolescents, and
Sure.
obviously that Blue record came out. That was in more Minor Threat era than Dag Nasty era, so
Sure.
I had to have been influenced by that. But I know I played octave stuff on out of whatever the album where I played guitar in Minor
Out,
Threat.
out of step.
I honestly don't know.
Right.
Like,
It was out
there's
of
the
step.
red one that I didn't play guitar on, and there's the one with a
Exactly.
sheet, and then there's the one where everyone's sad.
Well,
Those are the three.
you can't say the red one because that first one there was so many colors, Brian. You know.
Yeah, but the OG one, I
Sure.
think I think people call that filler now. They call that
Okay.
record. They named it in the collecting
Yeah.
business. I
Yeah.
have some contacts who are, you know, financing heavy mortgages by just selling this stuff
Yeah.
that I would have thrown away
The guys that
back
know
then.
more about records that we played on than we do.
The guys who I just decided I wanted to at least have a first pressing of stuff that I was on, so I had to go buy them from people,
Yeah.
and they had to explain to me what it was that I wanted. Like I didn't know. Oh, that one was black? I thought it was red. Well, no, the first ones were black,
Yeah.
Brian.
And you're like, I
Okay.
played on the fucking thing.
I didn't at the time that wasn't it obviously wasn't very important. You just didn't think long term. But anyway, speaking to the Rick Agnew thing, yeah, I dug him. I think also the reason is that Rick Agnew's body of work kind of didn't really. It just was there, and then it kind of stopped. Like
Sure.
that adolescence thing is so seminal and important, but I've been out there for 40 years doing that same dance. So it's like the winners write the history.
Sure.
Like it's just that he's yet another person I stole from and
Yeah.
just happened to expose people to.
Well, and you're right. I mean, I guess you're right. We're all stealing from people. I stole from liberally from you and Stefan, which I've made no, bones about, and I've told you both to your faces together that you guys are the reason why I play. And
Well, I also know because I've watched you play, and you play like Stefan and me, and then some other guy
yeah,
who's some Texas guy who's crazy. Like you're not just us. You've got the Zach part, but it's we know,
thank you. I
and we're
appreciate.
proud of you, son. Go out there,
That means
go
the
out there and
whole.
make a living.
That means that means the whole world to me, and I only laugh because it's amazing to hear that from one of your idols, if not your idol. Uh, but that is the truth, and it's prevalent, and I wear it on my shirt sleeves, and I'm so glad I have you, and I had Stefan also on this podcast. So let's get into some shit. You and me, I talk about it at the front of this, but you and me, I have always received a lot of I'll say shit from you for my gear choices, and you're
Hmm.
usually 100% correct. Actually, you're 100% correct. Not usually, you are 100% correct, and
Well,
you're right. And you talk to me like a little brother with those sorts of things, and I take it on. And we did just talk about I'm switching my gear up a little bit, but that's one of the things I set my watch to it. It's my North Star, checking in with you about gear
yeah.
and talking about gear. And we've had I don't know how long a conversation where we don't even see each other for months or even talk, and then it'll just be the conversation just continues.
Oh
Um,
yeah, well
I
that's
love
it's great. That's what you do with really good friends, and
absolutely.
also that's what guys do. I mean, there's no
That's true.
it's like I'm somewhere else, and then oh wait, or I feel like texting Zach,
Right.
and you look and I see the last text was like August 16th, 21. Like what?
Yeah. What are we going to
He
talk
doesn't.
about? We're not going to talk about fucking sports. You know what I mean? We're gonna talk about real important shit. Um,
Yeah,
Speaking of which, where are you right now? What are you playing right now?
what I'm playing right now is I am playing a Kemper through a powered Kemper head through a two Mesa Boogie rectifier sized cabinets.
Okay.
And I think that I have Europe ones and US ones. I think they all have 65-watt Celestions in them, but I
Okay.
haven't taken the backs off, and I've had them for a really long time. These cabinets, the US ones are 15 years old, and I think the Euro ones are 20.
Wow.
Um, yeah. And so I just basically play this powered. I did get a rack one just to fly, and I switched to wireless. Um,
Oh.
for a number of reasons, but and so I needed a way to, so basically I was using the sort of the lunchbox looking toastery
Sure.
uh, powered Kemper heads, but now I'm in a rack
Okay.
doing.
So with the Kemper now, doesn't it not even matter what speakers you have in the cabs?
Well, I don't know because I don't know a lot about this Kemper.
Me neither.
What I have, yeah, what I have is that I made a model of my favorite head that I own, or I'm sorry, a profile is their
Sure.
language of my favorite head that I own. And it sounded great. And I put up the Kemper. This was the first Kemper I had maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And I A-B'd them. And I couldn't really tell the difference. At my house, I could not tell the difference. I was like, Jesus Christ, this is amazing. And so that's that one that I made that day 5, 6 years ago. That's the same file
Holy
that I
shit.
use now. So it's just an 800. It's a it's a 1989 JCM stock JCM 800 that I bought new.
Yeah.
It just is the good one, and I don't know. It's tubes. Tubes are probably 10 years old. I don't play it that much now because I mean Steinkopf uses it when B-Trats come over to practice, but
Right.
it's like it's kind of dormant, and that's all I've done. So I'm not exploring any of this Kemper language at all. I'm basically I just have this this ghost of my amp that I use, and I put them through those cabinets loud.
Right.
Like I don't front of house. I don't really even know what he's taking. I mean, obviously he's taking something direct. I don't know. He's probably got. I wish I knew more about it, but I'm sure
Sure.
that he's using either he's not just getting a direct signal. He's getting the 800, and I'm sure maybe there's some sort of cab modeling, something that's going on in his feed. Otherwise, it would sound like a banjo. So
Right.
I pushed that button before and went, "Oh, that doesn't sound good."
Right.
Oh, that
right.
one.
Right.
Add that. Yes, we want the good sound.
Well,
So that's what it is.
with my also as I've previously stated, Kemper sent us some things to try out, and I was like, wow, we profiled my main head and tried it out. I was like, oh my god, that sounds exactly. And there's for guys like you and me that do a lot of flyouts and things, it makes so much sense. But I had Brian Baker on my shoulder when I was using it, going, this is stupid. This is new technology. You should not be doing this. And I was like, you know what? You're right, Brian Baker. And then I talked to you and you're like, you know what? I'm Kempering now. And I was like, Brian Baker,
Well, you were right, but you see, you're right on all counts. Like, I mean, I'm certainly a lot more liberal about what's new and old. I don't really care as much, like as far as
Sure.
being a purist. But in a recording studio, I still am because
Sure.
that's what people are hearing. And I'll be the first to admit, like, my Kemper sounds awesome. But if I plug in one of those modded plexis I have and ABM on a stage, the Marshall sounds way better.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It sounds better. I know that.
Yeah.
So it's like when you switch to CDs, when they were telling you to stop buying records, and they were great until you A-B'd them
Right.
with Led Zeppelin 2 that you bought in high school.
Right.
So the answer is just don't do that, and it's great. And so I just don't. Like I've got heads on the stage ready to go just because they look cool and they're always
Right.
I've always carried them. I've got Silver Jubilees are the ones in Europe.
Oh, right.
And just as long as I never actually test them, I'm fine because we're talking about what's coming out of the front of house, and both our bands are big enough where really what we're doing is we're just kind of like these ants dancing, and there's these huge boxes, and that's the front of house guys deciding what people hear.
Right.
And the subtlety is lost with the Kemper versus the actual head is never ever going to be something that factors into what's coming through front of house.
Yeah.
It just is.
And if anything, the consistency of the Kempers for him, the sound guy, he's going to thank you for that because he's not dealing with tubes. He's not dealing with weather. He's not dealing with all that shit that could fuck up a regular tube head.
No microphone, no humidity.
No microphone. Yeah, exactly.
No line, no all of this. Yeah, of course. I mean, we're pretty efficient. I mean, you and I, we have the same job. There's a lot of times we're playing festivals, we don't have a sound check, and our guys have 20 minutes
Yep.
to get the whole thing running. And the last thing they need to do is worry about like, well, I use 2 stereo mics on each of my cabinets, and one of them goes to the JTM 45, and I have a Macintosh preamp that I use for that. If I had a shock mounted case, and then like, fuck that.
Yeah,
I want it
right.
to be efficient as humanly possible. And that's kind of what that whole Kemper thing even came from. That it was just going to places where the rental gear was sketchy.
Yeah.
And I was like, my friend Chris, Chris from Less Than Jake.
Sure.
Chris DeMakes. He's
Yeah.
like, well, I have this Kemper thing and it works great when we fly. I think I know a guy there, and I got one to go to somewhere. I think it was the first time we went to Chile or someplace.
Oh, wow.
Not even, no, it was like Costa Rica, like someplace we'd never really been. And it was looking like, I don't know. It looks like I'm going to see some JCM 2000s over there. No offense.
Right.
It's not me.
Right.
And so that's why I got it in the first place. So it's just a tool. That's really all it is.
Okay. Well, so we did that. So what guitars are you currently playing?
Well, I still am into the juniors, which is great. I basically have now been bringing juniors out and, well, what we would call a Les Paul standard if it was, 1979. But
Sure.
I have two 1955 Les Paul juniors that are in definitely beyond player grade. They're in like prayer grade condition.
Yes.
One of them I got was a husk, like didn't have anything on it. The other one's been broken a bunch of times, and they have no original parts, but the wood is original on these guitars.
Yeah.
And I put, and they're amazing. They're just, I use a Joe Glazer bridge. I use a Seymour Duncan custom P90, but they're dog ears, so they make them and they wind them to like 13.6. I mean, Seymour Duncan's been so cool to me for so many decades.
Such great people.
And they're just awesome.
Great people.
And so there's whatever was written on my page. That's what it's always the same,
right?
Which is cool. And then I also, just before COVID, I wanted to get an R9. Like I was just kind of, I was like, you know what? I don't have I didn't have a proper modern new, like 1959 reissue guitar. And all I do on the computer all day is like, guitar forums and stare at reverb and all of this shit. And I was like, God, I don't even have one. And so I was in Chicago and I got one at Chicago Music Exchange and it was great. And I forgot the whole point of the humbucker is that it's easier than the P90.
For sure.
And it's like if you want to give yourself a break, if you play P9, if you play a junior all the time, you just throw on one of those Cadillacs and you're just like, whoa, look, those fingers are moving. Look at that. And it's just because the humbucking pickup just covers up so much shit. It makes you, the P90 really makes you work a little bit harder. I mean, it's almost, you really want to work hard to play a telly. I mean, if you want to, that's insanely difficult to play well. But so I was kind of taking a vacation and I was just kind of relying on, I bought after I got the R9 and I loved it, then I found a gold top that was the same neck and almost exactly the same weight. And so I got that one as a backup to the R9 because as you know, when you change guitars, well, you don't just get one.
Right. Never.
Well, now I'm going to need two of these. Yeah. I have to. That was written that way. Yeah. So
there's no one. There's no one.
No, but it's funny you mentioned that. I'm breaking that mold soon. I'm kind of realizing you don't need two anymore.
Brian Baker. Revelations.
Well, it's I'm learning a lot in my middle to late 50s. I'm learning a lot of things that I never knew. So the short answer is I am playing these juniors and I am playing, I play half. Okay. I play most of the set with the humbucker guitar. That's not even fair. I play 30% with a junior and 60% with a humbucker guitar. The one thing the humbucker guitar is great for is that I have some solos that are on the rhythm pickup that when I was all junior, I just said, well, fuck it. I can't do it. So just act like they were never written that way. But in Bad Religion, I mean, especially like that song Sorrow, where it's such a rhythm pickup solo, and there's a lot of rhythm pickup songs. So it's been cool to use both now because I can be a little more accurate. I think it serves the song better. Sure. But, if I had to go down to just one guitar, it's the junior, 100%. Wow.
But you're right. Yeah. I mean, those P90s are unforgiving, man. I mean, it is, if you're going to make a mistake, it's going to be loud,
Yeah.
There's
there's not as much of a comfort zone, but the rewards are so great when
Sure.
you like. I don't even use effects. So if I want a clean sound, I turn down the knob, the volume knob,
Yeah.
and a P90 guitar with the right pot just cleans up so beautifully. It sounds like a piano.
Yeah.
Humbucker doesn't clean up the same way. You lose no matter what you do with a treble bleed or the right pot that some guy in Sweden made at home in 1941 and all that shit. It still just doesn't clean up the same way.
Right.
And also the P90 is noisy. But I developed a style, a simple solution to that, which was that when I'm not playing the guitar, I turn the volume knob down.
Right.
And
You
this
heard
is like
it
a
here,
rebel.
folks.
Yeah. So it's like even a song like Digital Boy, down, down, down. Like it's
Right.
like a weird dance. I mean, you obviously can't see me, but I'm doing a weird dance. I'm
Right.
doing a pantomime of a man turning the volume knob up and down very quickly
I can attest to that, folks. It's quite
during
amazing.
pauses in the
Right.
song. Yeah, and that's it's actually kind of fun because now it's a habit, and I do it on the humbucker guitars for no reason at all.
Well,
Like my hand.
because I with the with Les Pauls, I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I turn the neck pickup off, down, and I use the
Right.
toggle switch as a kill switch, and and all of my toggle switches are sort of rubbed to a point almost from like popping it back
Yeah.
and forth, well, that was going to be my next question. You don't use effects. You are sans effects.
I am without effects.
Without effects.
And it's well, first of all, what I'm doing is pretty. I mean, I don't need a lot to do any of the bands I'm in. Really, it's just this guitar sound is what I'm into,
Sure.
and anything really spatial or important, Ronnie does it front of house.
Right.
Like you will hear effects coming off the stage in Bad Religion, especially, but I don't need to play to the effect.
Right.
So I don't need it. I don't need to control it myself. I don't have any part that I wrote with a delay. So I need to, you know what I'm talking about. I mean,
Sure.
there's a lot of pedal people. It's not just like they want to collect shiny things. It's because their writing uses these tools, but
Right.
mine never has. So I'm comfortable knowing, like in my head, in my in-ears, like I know that there's a repeat on this part I'm playing. I just don't need to hear it
Right.
because I trust that it's there.
And you don't need to be troubling yourself with remembering to step on this thing during,
I used to do that all the time. I mean,
Sure.
Dag Nasty, I had pedals. I had a pretty good sized pedal board in Bad Religion for a while.
Hey man, the solo to Sinister Rouge, my friend, that is a crybaby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, dude, you're not gonna. I don't think that's a wah-wah pedal. I think
Really?
that's just my. Yeah, I've been asked this before. It's just a weird. I think it's a filter that they put on. I don't think I know. I heard this. I know I didn't have a wah-wah pedal. There's just something. There's some junk on that solo.
No
some kind of
shit.
yeah. That it was done on the board.
I've always thought that. And I could have asked you because we're friends. I could have asked you, but that's a great solo.
Well, thank you. But
Yeah.
I used to carry a wah-wah pedal too because I was, a lot of times I was really drunk, and the way to get out of it, if you get in a hole in a solo, click that fucking thing off.
Oh, for sure.
And then you're Jimi Hendrix, and it's done. And you're just out. I am so fucking good.
Yeah.
Look at me go. Because you don't even have to hit the notes anymore. You're just
Exactly.
using your accelerator.
Exactly.
And actually, Hetson used to say that was the cheater pedal. It's like, well, you have a cheater pedal. Like, all right. Yeah, I taken. But I kind of got off the boards. I got off pedals, in the last maybe 10 years or so. As Ronnie, we always come back to Ron Kimball, but the front of house people have to know that front of house guy is so incredibly important to the band.
Well, and Ronnie, because he knows your band so well, he is definitely the sixth member of your band,
For sure. And he joined the band a day before I did. So we're in our 28th year.
Wow.
And Ronnie's just like, you don't have to do that shit. I can do it up here.
All
I'm
right.
like, wait, so you can create those effects with much better equipment than I am using.
Yeah, for sure.
Not something with a 9-volt battery in it that I can kick over. You're actually using something that has come when you rented an entire public address system that says like Eventide on it, or
Right.
I realized that maybe the smart move was to let the guy who knows how to do it.
Yeah, which
And
is
here we are.
Smart wisdom. I have a pedal board in front of me, as you well know now, and I just went for like, if Michael Schenker didn't use it, which is probably the Luddite in me. We have all this available to us now, and you know, but 5 pedals. I'm trying to do everything I need to do with just like, because it's all either a delay or a flange or a boost. So just put those in front of you, and you're done.
Well,
From
also, Zach, you're in a different band too. Your
Sure,
band, you need to be able to. You have a lot more of that shit on your records. Let's
sure,
just face
for
it.
sure, for
And in
sure.
order to serve your songs, you need to have a lot more toe tapping. And maybe it's even, also with your other guys too. Maybe that's not something that the front of house guy has time for.
Yeah,
At Religion, we're not. It's just a different thing. We're much drier, stripped down. Mike doesn't use any pedals.
yeah,
Um, and our live thing isn't really about recreating records. It's about serving songs.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just a little different. I mean, I think you're using the right tools for your job.
Thank you,
In
sir.
other words, there's nothing wrong with pedals at all.
That reference was to Mike Dimkich, the co-guitar player in Bad Religion, who I'd love to have on here as well. Also, just
Yeah.
an amazing, amazing guitar player with a really cool career. Does a lot of really great things. Well, so
And
I
a
don't.
great
He's
sense of style too.
great
Yeah.
sense
His
of style.
sartorial. Yeah.
Great sense of style.
He set the bar. He set the bar. We all started to clean up our act when he showed up.
Hey,
I bought a shirt with buttons on it.
yeah, you did, and I was really impressed to see it. You got to
Thank
step it up. So you stepped it up. So I don't have you here for all day. I'll ask you a few questions. And what was the history of your own personal playing? So when did you start?
I started playing guitar. I was 7. I got a guitar for Christmas when I was 7, but I turned 8 in February. So basically, 8
Gotcha.
is when I started playing guitar. When I got really interested in guitar, and it was because I had gone to see a cover band at our my school in, I don't know what grade you're in when you're 7, second, third. I don't have any.
Yes, yeah. Second.
I don't know. So we would have the end of the year. Our school would have this annual thing called Field Day, and it was where your parents come and picnics and sack races and all of
Sure.
that stuff. And they had the high school kids. They had a band, like a cover band, and I had never seen live music before,
All right.
and I was completely blown away by this band, and I didn't participate. I didn't have a chicken leg. I didn't participate in anything. I just stared at this
Right.
band. And they were probably, they're probably 14, which meant that they were adults to me because I was so miniature
Totally.
and playing Smoke on the Water. But it didn't matter. It was the whole thing. And so I just really, that was in June when I'm, end of school year. And so it took me to Christmas to really piss my parents off enough where they were like, okay, well, we'll get you an inexpensive acoustic guitar and see
Yeah.
if you're interested. And so that's when it really started. But I didn't really get motivated until I was probably about 10 or 11.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because skateboarding was important, and I played tennis, and I just didn't. It didn't really become a obsession
Right.
until then.
I think that's
Yeah.
when it does happen, though. I mean, I got a guitar at 9, and it wasn't until I was about 11 to where I was just like, I really want to do this. And my version was Foghat, played like actual
Awesome.
fog. And by this point, they were probably like Foghat, and they played in the mall parking lot in Sherman, Texas. My dad was a radio DJ. That's what he did for a living. So I think he was obligated to go for the radio station because his radio station promoted. And so we went, and I was like 4 or 5, and I remember just playing air guitar, which I have a real aversion to nowadays. And I was like, this is what I want to do. At that, and seeing Woodstock, Pete Townsend. But anyway, this is not about me. It's funny. I haven't thought about the Foghat experience until you brought that up, like actually seeing a band for the first time.
Right. It's pretty powerful.
It is.
Obviously.
It's alien. It's like, wait, what they're doing is making this noise, this sound.
And the vibration with the whole thing is,
Yeah. So who are your, like, we've already talked a bit about Sensible, which I'm sure we could talk about forever, but who are your influences, your biggest guys, your guys?
Well, when I started playing guitar, it was the Beatles, and it was George Harrison because he was, quote, the lead guitar player, unquote. And at least that was my understanding as a young man before before I became a real true Beatle nut and learned a lot about them. We also shared a birthday.
Oh.
So I had this thing about George Harrison, and George Harrison was my first guitar player, and then it was Angus Young.
Ooh.
And then I early on figured out how important Malcolm was,
For
and
sure.
then a little Eddie Van Halen. And then right around there, Dr. No, Bad Brains, all of a sudden I was in this new world of like, Gary was just insane. I had a local guitar player who was amazing.
Yeah.
And then I had Captain Sensible and Nicky Garrett. UK Subs was really huge, important to me. So that's kind of when punk, like I walked into punk I played a little bit like, I was a little bit like Angus. I mean, that was my thing. I already had that kind of, I mean, you still hear it now.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
There's this thing there's this AC/DC thing. At least I think it showed me the economy of playing, like, don't play as clean as you can, but still have sustain,
Yeah.
which is something I really pulled from the AC/DC, especially the early good stuff.
Sure.
And also to play with economy. Well, Angus was certainly not this ripping dude, but he just
Right.
he just has the game.
His note choices are just so.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny is I can hear all of that and you're playing. I can hear Angus, I can hear Dr. No, I can hear Captain Sensible. And it's funny, take a solo like Sinister Rouge. To me, that sounds like Dr. No mixed with Angus Young, because it's.
Well, you're right. That Dr. No, the end of that solo is Dr. No.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I do that trick all the time because it's easy for me to pull off, and it sounds harder than it is. That sort of, I don't know what it's called, opposite picking, whatever.
Right.
Guys?
Sure.
Do you know the term?
You mean like the economy picking thing?
Whatever the fuck it's called. There's a term for it, and I barely know how to do it, but it wows them in Dusseldorf. You know what I mean? It's
you could have fooled me, my friend. I think you're doing it expertly. But it's funny you say that because that, and how lucky were you that in your hometown you could go see Dr. No play?
Right, and also that my hometown was a stop for UK punk bands because you're not going to come all the way over just to play New York. And in Washington, D.C., there was an established punk scene. So I got to see UK Subs, and I got to see Discharge, and I got to see, stuff I didn't even want to see. I got to see Antipasti. I got we had all of this shit coming because we were the Thursday night if their show, in New York was Friday, and then you have to go to Boston too.
Right.
So I was very lucky to see all these people right when I was really starting to become a musician. I didn't know I was, but
it's also been well documented that you were sort of a prodigal kid as well, and even your bandmate, your old bandmate Ian Mackay told us that you were kind of the better musician in Minor Threat that sort of showed them all like what to do, and you were the youngest guy. Which
that's kind of him, but
well, I think it's true.
Whatever. I think the only child thing is the most important here because I did nothing but play guitar, and I was precocious. I mean, I jokingly said like, well, I did peak at 12, so it's been a great. but admittedly, I did get good really fast to a point. And that point where I kind of hit that wall right around when Minor Threat started. So it seemed like I was this sort of, trained virtuoso, but it was just that I knew how to play Eruption. It had no bearing on Minor Threat at all, but, it's like the bass player, the 15-year-old bass player knows how to play Eruption. It's like, whoa, that's pretty, when everyone else
great.
is. It was like, again, a little smoke and mirrors. So.
Yeah, but it still informs you to other things, to where, I mean, being that good at 15 years old, and I mean, knowing how to play something like that, it does broaden your horizons to where then you're bringing things like that to other bands, which of course you ended up doing. And you have been in, at least, 3 of not the most, but probably the most seminal punk rock bands of all time. It's pretty amazing.
Just the more that I was excited about guitar in all of its forms at a very early age. So when I come into Minor Threat and a lot of these early bands, we all learn, most of the people were learning to play punk to play in their first punk band.
Right.
And I'd had all this homework, and I was still interested in learning. I just still liked all kinds of music, and
Yeah.
I think that was really what it is. By that time, I had already found what I wanted from life, and I wanted to
Right.
play the guitar. I didn't think of it as something that was sustainable or that I would have a job doing it. But I
Right.
found this is one part of me is that I'm always going to be into guitar.
This is the thing. Yeah. And we smell
Yeah.
our own. When I first met you, of course, it was a huge deal for me because I'd grown up just wanting to be you. And then to realize that we had that in common, and you had this, because I've met guys that are like, it's just what I do. And I fish and I do all this other shit. And to meet a guy that had no other hobbies or other, this is what you do. This is who you are. And I was like, it me, because I don't, I don't, I don't fucking camp. You know what I mean? Like we ended up making our hobbies or our passions what we also do for a living, and it doesn't mean that ever went away. If anything, it's exacerbated, which is great. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah,
And dumb luck helps too. And right
sure.
place at right time. I mean, I'm not trying. My wife tells me to stop, like, being all humble and shit, like to a degree. And
Right,
I get it because I really do self-deprecate a lot. But you can't discount that also we were part of this insane new music that came to fruition when we were young, and it did not require training. You learned on the job. And
right.
that's a neat place to be. It was like if you imagine like you play electric guitar and you already play guitar, and then you go see Bill Haley in the Comets,
Right.
and you're like, whoa, look at this, and then it's just we were very lucky to be at that point.
But I'm going to side with your wife here. And yes, you are self-deprecating, and you always have been. Yeah. Okay. You came of age at a time when punk rock was happening and blah, blah, blah. You also happen to be at any given time in the band, whatever that band might have been, that was pushing the envelope of the whole genre. So there's something to be said about that, Brian. I mean, I think,
Well, yeah, it's that I'm really fortunate and flattered, but
ah, all
there's a
right.
lot of right there's a lot of right place, right time, dude. I mean,
I
seriously,
agree.
it just
I agree. I also think it's because you are you and I love you and you're the best. So,
thank
yeah.
I love you too.
Well, always and forever, my friend. Um,
You're by far the best guitar player in Rise Against. I'm
well,
going to tell
thank you
you that
very
later.
much. I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Any compliment from you, I'll take. All right. So let's see. Speaking of Angus, is it? Do you think it's the gear or is it you? I think like Angus Young could play into anything. He's going to sound like Angus Young.
I sound the same pretty much through everything. And I also just kind of do the same thing in every band, even if the band is different.
Right.
I'm in three bands right now that are really wildly different. Of course, there's Bad Religion, and then I'm in a band called Beach Rats, which is a New Jersey hardcore band with some very good friends of mine who play in the Bouncing Souls.
Sure.
Uh, and that is a completely different kind of band. And then I'm in a third band called Fake Names with old friends from DC who were in Embrace and Girls Against Boys and Soulside, and our friend Dennis who sings for Refused and
Yep.
Invasion. And that's a completely other different thing too. That's I mean close. That's like power pop from
It's amazing,
'78,
though.
and then right. I play the same exact way in all of those bands with the
Right.
same guitar set.
Right.
And it's like I get cleaner by not hitting the strings as hard or turning the volume down, and I just I fake effects with the way I choose notes,
Right.
and it's all the same. Like I really think it's just me. I sound the same.
I agree. I agree with you because I am a fan of all those bands. As a matter of fact, at the Beach Rats, you need to give me that new stuff. You played it for me when we were together last, and it's unbelievable. The Fake Names record got me through COVID, and that's no. I am not. It's no
Thank you.
hyperbole. That record is unbelievable. That band is unbelievable. And you're right. I mean, because I'm a huge fan of yours and also your friend, I know it's you playing. You know.
And that's really, I think, a big thing for guitar players is that's a real goal. Like if you get to be where you're identifiable in everything you do, where people don't know, and they go, okay,
Right.
well that's him. I mean, it's like I don't know. I just think it's how that happens is mysterious, but
Right.
I definitely do enjoy that, and I'm pretty stoked about it because I haven't worn a name tag that says "May I help you" since 19. 71.
Which is
Pretty good.
that's
Yeah.
I mean that's the true sign of success.
It's a good run, got to tell you.
It's a great run, my friend. Gear through the years, we could also be like the one that got away. We all have a guitar that got away.
Jesus. So many.
What's
many.
What's one? What do you got?
One huge one to me, and even it's funny because it's not anything you'd think about me having, but I did not buy for $700 a 1963 Stratocaster, all original, Olympic white, rosewood board. $700. And it was probably in 1986, and I didn't buy it from Gil Southworth, who has become and is well known as one of the most insane and most incredible guitar dealers in the history of vintage guitars.
Right.
He's this crazy dude that everybody he's a little under the radar now, but he had so much great stuff, and that just speaks to the other things that he always had such amazing stuff, and I would walk in to a room and I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Didn't understand it, and that was one that I understood. Even at the time, I was like, wow, that was really cool, because I think he was like a little drunk and it was late at night, and he was the kind of guy who would flip a coin for a Marshall head, like fuck it.
Yeah, I dig it. Right.
Yeah, and I think the guitar was probably like $2,000 then, or whatever. And I just was like, I even took it home and brought it back.
God,
I was like, I don't know, Gil. I mean, the scale's different than the Gibson scale. It's a little hard. Yeah, fucking idiot. Yeah, so I blew that one pretty hard.
What about something you've played? Like you did play for a while. Like, was it a Diagnostic guitar, Bad Religion, whatever?
Well, I wish I had my first Les Paul. My first Les Paul was probably a 73, 72, that weird zone of Gibson Les Paul Deluxe, tobacco sunburst, 10 pounds, Norland, pancake body. I got it as a deluxe, and I installed 3 DiMarzio Super Distortion. Well, I guess 2 were dual sounds and 1 was a Super Distortion. I did the Ace Frehley thing with this guitar, and I had it in punk. I played it when I was in Government Issue during a Minor Threat hiatus.
Wow.
And I really wish I still had that guitar. And the worst part of that guitar is that about a few years ago, a guy hit me up after reading an interview I had done, and he said, like, hey, I think I have your guitar. Your 3-pickup Ace Frehley first guitar.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's fantastic news. That is so awesome. And he tells me the story, and he grew up right where I grew up, and he bought it from a guitar dealer. I didn't even know what had happened to the guitar, but he bought it from my local guitar dealer, which told me, okay, I traded it for some piece of junk that I don't remember having either. And for a minute there, he was like interested in selling it to me or trading it. And I was like, that's great. What do you want? He was like, well, do you have any Les Paul Juniors? And I did have some reissues, but I never in my wildest dreams did I think this guy was going to actually, a couple of years ago say like, well, yeah, I'll trade you for a $6,000 guitar for this, albeit like just completely like no strings, fucked up, uncared for, under the bed. What I know to be probably didn't sound good. It was just the nostalgia, really.
Oh, for sure.
And so I was like, I offered him a really great TV model reissue custom shop, and he was like, yeah, you know what? I think I'll keep it. It's really important. It's really important to me. It was my first guitar, is what he said. And I'm just like, wow, you're fucking great.
You're a fucking asshole.
Well, I don't know. I have to be kind of nice because I think that guitar's still there under that dude's bed.
Well, if he's listening, please.
Yeah. If he's listening, it's like, I really, I'm sorry that we had a misunderstanding, but
yeah. Is this the guitar that when you did play in Minor Threat a guitar, the videos of the 5-piece, is that you have a tobacco sunburst Les Paul in that?
I have a cherry sunburst. You're looking at black and white pictures because it was before they had. That's how long ago it was. Yeah, in Minor Threat, I played a gold. I had 2 different gold tops, and I had at least 1 cherry sunburst But
Okay.
the one with the 3 pickups I didn't play, and I don't know why, but I did have it in government issue.
Okay.
I don't know, because I have a picture of me playing it with John Stab.
Okay.
I don't fucking know.
But you know
I
what,
wish I
man?
still.
There is something so alluring about that black and white 3 humbucker, white, the stark white plastic of the
Yeah,
custom, the Ace Frehley. That I actually did that to a custom, but I got like his is kind of the cream colored plastic, or maybe it was white back then. But I got like white plastic. I had the pick guard. I didn't do the 3 humbuckers, but I just thought it was so cool looking. It's aesthetics.
yeah.
It's all
No,
aesthetics.
I love that. Think about how classic those styles are. I mean, that's another reason why I love Gibson guitars so much. They're just the Gibson and Fender stuff looks great for a reason.
It does.
It's because they were designed at a cool time.
You're right. You're right. I'll let you
They're just
go, but I do want to say, and this is a big one, and it's probably not an easy answer, but what's been the biggest revelation of your guitar playing life?
well, I don't know. I mean, there have been a number of them lately, and I think
Interesting.
certainly the idea that you don't need all these amps and pedals
Sure.
is a later life revelation that I've learned. It's like, it's just the economy of playing. It's the economy of my equipment and also note choice. Like I have never been a speed metal guitar player guy,
Right.
but I found myself even in Bad Religion in like the aughts playing more and more of this really complicated stuff because I could, but it doesn't necessarily mean I should.
Right.
And I've improved as a player by dialing that back. And Mike Dimkich, the other, my good friend and the other guitar player in Bad Religion, he says it's being parsimonious with the notes. And his goal is to play solos with just 1 or 2 notes successfully.
Right.
And it's like, he's like, you don't give it away. You want every note out there to count. And and he's such a fantastic guitar player, but I have taken some of his advice. And now when I play live, I find it much more satisfying to just kind of bend to things like just if I can stay on one string and get 4 or 5 notes out of it,
Yeah.
it's rad.
No.
It's so much cooler than this blur that I used to do. And also, I was never that accurate. I wasn't like, there's so many people who are so great at that, and I've never been really that good at it. I've just been good enough to pull it off.
I disagree. But
Yeah.
as always, I always get great useful advice from you, and that is something I've kind of had that revelation myself lately. I've been really into David Gilmour lately, and what an economy player, but every
Yeah.
solo he does is hummable and it's its own part of the music and it's its own, and kind of thinking what would David Gilmour do in this solo, which is more of a lyrical sort of melody sort of situation. And then to have it, that advice you just gave, you always are a wealth of knowledge and advice, my friend.
I appreciate it. And one other thing I do that still freaks people out is that I make up solos every night. I don't have like a set. I mean, there's certain hummable ones that in any of the bands that I'm in that you do,
Sure.
but when it's kind of a wild style thing, I don't have one set. And I just say very, very Spicoli about it. Like, let's party. And I will start. I'm even kind of guessy with what note is right from the first fret to the
Sure.
21st fret.
Me too.
And I'll just go on a note on a string I'm not used to. And if it's a clam, I'll slide it. But if it's close, if it somehow involves,
Yeah.
I will say, okay, I'm going to start here and see where it goes. And it's like, sure, there's clams, but some nights it's so fucking great.
When it works out, when it works.
What? And it's a test. And it's like, I've been playing a lot of these songs. If you've been playing, half the set of Bad Religion are songs that I've been playing for 28 years.
Mhm.
And it's even more, it's so cool to refresh yourself by going into like, let's see what happens if I start this solo on the A string on the third.
Right.
What key is that an F? No, it's not quite an F.
I'll get out of it. I'm working my way out of it. Today's day and age too, I've done that as well. And then for me, it's like, and there are clams and you hear them yourself like, oh, Jesus God. And then for me, it's like, it's like a sore tooth. It's going to be on YouTube. Probably by the time you get to your bunk and then you watch it, you're like, oh my God,
don't watch it. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And you got to free yourself from all that, because it's not about, it's the people who are in the building that you're having the experience with.
Yeah, you're right.
And that clam doesn't matter to them, and they don't know it's there, and it's gone because you moved on. And the YouTube thing is a totally different way to consume what you're doing.
You're right.
And I don't need to be perfect. It's like, yeah, there's YouTube, watch a Bad Religion. It's fucking, there's a lot of things that just aren't correct. But it's like, it's not, we're not playing for that. We're playing for the people that are there.
That's what's beautiful about the type of music we play, you and me, that we've dedicated our lives to, you know. And one of the reasons I've done that is because of you. And I know I say all that stuff a lot, but I cannot say it enough. And thank you so much for doing my little humble guitar podcast, sir.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and of course, I love talking to you anyway. So
we would have done this anyway. You and I would have done this
anyway. Exactly,
no,
and I'm sure we'll do it again probably in about 24 hours.
Yes, we will, because I have new information since we've been talking.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Brian. I love you, buddy, and let's talk soon.
Absolutely, Zach. Thank you.
Man, I hope I didn't come off as too much of a fanboy on that one. And I say that in all humility. I mean, you know, that Brian Baker is actually a friend of mine, and that sounds like a weird thing to say. That's very name-droppy on my part to say that. But I still get a little weird talking to him. I get weird talking to him. I got weird talking to Stefan. These are my guys. These were the guys, you know, I never thought I would know. I never thought I'd be able to text these people, much less have a conversation with them about dorky guitar stuff for an hour on a podcast that you guys are all listening to. I'm such a lucky person. But man, wasn't that wonderful? And isn't he wonderful? And like I said, like I told him, I mean, for what I do for a living, I play in Rise Against, the band. My guitar style in that band is more attributed to Brian Baker than any other player. Now, as far as me personally, yeah, Brian's my guy, Stefan's my guy, Angus Young, Gary Moore, Michael Schenker, you know, but for what I do, for the most part of what I do, it is Brian Baker. And he's such a humble guy, he won't even take that compliment. And he deflects. But that's the real deal right there, man. That's the real guys. I'm so lucky to have these people as influences, and I'm so lucky to be able to talk to him, and I'm so lucky you listened to me talk to him, that you have listened and tuned in to this podcast, The Anti-Heroes, with me, Zach Blair. Okay, so I would be remiss here to not leave you with some Brian Baker guitar music. First of all, we're going to go with Trying from the Wig Out at Dinko's record by Dag Nasty. In my opinion, Brian is probably the single most influential punk rock guitar player that shaped what we knew as punk rock, that, you know, from the 90s on to what we do. Definitely what I do in Rise Against. Specifically, this riff for this song, Trying, listen to Rise Against Survive. You know, it's where we all sort of land when we're writing riffs in what can be known as punk rock guitar music nowadays. In my opinion, the ground zero is Brian Baker. If you want to go further, some extra credit, check out Values Here on the Can I Say record, also by Dag Nasty. Also check out any record Brian's ever played on. Definitely all the Bad Religion records, the Minor Threat records where he played bass, but he also played guitar on the Out of Step record. So do yourself a favor and check all of that out. Values Here on the Can I Say record, he's using octave chords that we all rip off. You know, I mean, there is not a Rise Against song where I don't play some octave chords. And in my opinion, that is because of Brian Baker. So start with the song Trying. It's going to be on the record Wig Out at Dinko's by the band Dag Nasty. Here you go. Here's some Brian Baker.